My son said I wasn't welcome on Thanksgiving. I smiled and sold the house they lived in. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. My own son kicked me out of Thanksgiving, so I put the house up for sale, and they had 30 days to move out. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. My name is Harold Whitman. I was 65 and had lived almost my whole life in West Hartford, Connecticut. 218 Maple Avenue was my quiet pride. Old brick from the 40s, a white porch, oak floors that creaked like an old friend, and a cherry tree out back that, come spring, let go of petals like snowfall. It's where I buried my son's dog. It's where Elaine and I sang Happy Birthday 23 times. It's where I learned to hear the oil heat wake the house on the hardest winters. It was my place, or so I thought. After Elaine was gone, I opened the door to Jason, my only son, his wife, Brooke, and my granddaughter, Lily. They were in a rough patch, pricey daycare, car payments, a maxed-out card. I told them to come. Until you're back on your feet. I covered the electric, the oil. The tank drank about 8,400 that year. The internet, half the groceries, and plenty of nights. The half that wasn't mine, too. I turned Elaine's old office into a modest little suite for myself. A bed, a dresser, a scuffed-up armchair, and an old radio that still caught Frank Sinatra on AM on clear nights. I bought them a fresh set of towels, pillows, a better car seat for Lily. Dad stuff, grandpa stuff. November rolled in smelling like wet leaves and strong coffee. Thanksgiving was around the corner and I was excited. It'd be the first with Lily talking in full sentences. I'd already scribbled a list in blue ink of what I was going to cook. A turkey around 18 pounds, sausage stuffing, cranberry sauce, mashed potatoes, and green bean casserole because Lily loved burying everything in crispy onions. Tuesday night I went to Big Y and bought it all. The bill came to $247 and change. I folded the receipt and tucked it in my shirt pocket like a poem. I came home with paper bags cutting into my hands. I walked in smiling. I found Brooke decorating the living room with a wooden sign that said "Gather" in loopy cursive. Jason was on the couch, his thumb pushing the world up on his phone, that endless scroll. "Dad, we need to talk real quick," he said, eyes still glued to the screen. Brooke took a breath like someone about to jump into cold water. "About Thursday." She looked at the ceiling, then at me with that smile that stops at the cheeks and never makes it to the eyes. "We're doing an adults-only Friendsgiving this year. Jason's co-workers, Ben and Maddie, the gym crowd. It'll be more fluid. I think it's better if you don't come this year." "Yeah, Dad," Jason added, fussing with his collar, still not meeting my eyes. "You know, you get emotional, talk about Mom, bring the mood down. We want a light vibe." I stood there, the plastic handles cutting into my fingers. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. "So I'm not welcome at my own house on Thanksgiving?" I asked slowly, like someone getting a diagnosis. "That's not it," he said fast, hunting for a shortcut that didn't exist. "Just, not this year. You can eat downstairs. We'll bring you a plate later." I remember the fridge door opening and closing, my hands shaking while I slid the turkey inside. I remember thinking that the word "gather" on the wall was a cruel joke. "Got it," I said. "No stress." And I smiled. Right there, with a bag of cranberries in my hand, a domino clicked over. Only on the inside. I didn't yell, I didn't argue. I went to my room. I pulled the deed from a folder, my name, paid off, checked the file with the mortgage stamped paid, and sat in the armchair with the radio turned low. Sinatra sang "That's Life." I told myself, "That's it, Harold. You've made it too easy." On Thursday, by late afternoon, the smell of butter and garlic seeped through the vents. I heard plates clatter, glasses clink, heard a cheers as fake as Monopoly money, loud laughter, the kind that loves the sound of itself. I stayed downstairs with a pre-made turkey dinner from the grocery store that set me back about $13. Twice Lily tapped at my door. "Grandpa?" Brooke whisked her away quick, always in a hurry to move past any discomfort. I took a breath. Between bites, I wrote 3 lines in my notebook. Monica Patel, realtor. Ethan Morales, attorney. Box of photos. Save. I didn't know it then, but that second line would be my anchor when the tide came in. Now that you know what my son told me on Tuesday, hear what I did on Friday. You won't believe what I did on Friday. Stay with me. The part that changes everything starts after the cold turkey. I've never been the kind of man who gives up on people. Elaine taught me that with her little fixes. When we got married back in '85, the back door had a squeal that sounded like a groan. I wanted to replace the whole thing. She just grabbed a vanilla candle, rubbed the track, and the noise stopped like a magic trick. Sometimes it's not about replacing, Hal. It's about care, she said, blowing out the candle and kissing me all sugar. That first winter, the heater choked on a Saturday. I went down to the basement, oil and dust in the air, and spent the afternoon fussing with valves. She came down with 2 mugs of strong coffee. Tastes like a factory, I joked. Tastes like home, she said. And that was that. When Jason was born, I wasn't good with babies. I changed diapers like I was taking apart a radio. Count, fold, adjust, tighten, mess it up. Elaine laughed. You'll learn. I did. I taught him to ride a bike on that street, hand on the back of the seat. I took him to Little League and science fairs. When his best friend's dad lost his job, I hired the man to paint the fence for just under $290. When our roof sprang a leak in '98, Elaine insisted on the light gray shingles because they match a cloudy sky. Complicated, I thought. These days, I still look up at roofs and think about the taste of our 15th anniversary cake, almond and berry, 36 and change at the bakery on Park Road. I bought the house for about $112,000 in '89, paid for it with sweat, overtime, and a yellow paper ledger where I wrote down every cent. 41 and change for gas here, 19 and a few at the drugstore there. The heaviest check I ever signed was the last mortgage payment. I tucked the receipt into the furnace manual, because to me a house has always been more engine than showroom. When Jason called to say Brooke was pregnant with Lily, I cried in the car, parked on Maple, the windshield dusted with pollen. When Elaine got sick, I learned how to warm soup without boiling it over. When she passed one of those white sky Januaries, I slept on the couch for 3 months. Widower stubbornness. I went back to bed when I realized it was selfish to let the couch belong to grief alone. I carried a glass-framed photo of her upstairs and a little radio. Sinatra sang, "I've got you under my skin," and I laughed to myself. Good, I said out loud, to no one. So when Jason said, "Dad, we're in a tight spot," I opened the door without doing the math. They pulled up with a rented U-Haul, 6 boxes, and Lily in a yellow onesie that said, "Sunny." I set the stroller on a rug Elaine picked at an outlet back in '03. Smelled like wool and mothballs. I rearranged the kitchen to fit all of us, moved the coffee maker, bought an extra set of silverware, swapped out cold bulbs for warm ones. That fall was all beef stew, bread coming out of the oven, the clatter of spoons on pots. I covered the internet and cable with a generous package for the whole streaming thing, about $2,900 for the year. I paid half of Lily's daycare, about $430 a month, due around the 5th. And when I ran 3 days late once, the receptionist said, "Mr. Whitman, we trust you." And I walked out with the receipt folded and the dumb urge to pay again just for her smile. I wanted Jason to feel supported. He had that goofy pride, same as me. We fight the world with the same fists. I bought him a coat on sale on Farmington Avenue, just under $60. He didn't notice it was my card. I didn't care. When Brooke cried because her friend bought a place in Glastonbury and she hadn't, I made tomato sauce and let it simmer a good 4 hours until the house smelled like a good past. I always believed sense can fix a conversation. Turns out, not always. I thought it would be temporary. 2 months, 3. In January, Jason turned 34. I got a chocolate cake with peanut butter filling because he's always liked too much of a good thing. We sang, Lily clapped, and I wished, quietly, that he'd see me. That he'd see this was called family, not hotel. At first they did the dishes together. Then the dishes started to pile up. "We'll do them later," he'd say. I'd do them. "I'll vacuum later," she'd say. I'd vacuum. Their later was my now. I laughed it off. The first month. The second month brought the first little humiliation. One Saturday, they had 4 friends over to watch a game. I came down with a bowl of nachos. One of them looked at me like I was the building super. "Thanks, sir." I felt that "sir" in my teeth, not respect, a heads up that I was in the way. I went back upstairs. The radio hissed. Some old baseball game on AM. I closed my eyes and thought of Elaine, of her hand always finding my shoulder in the dark. I'm no saint. I notice things. Brooke with baby store bags stamped organic cost triple the basics. Jason with a used console that ran him about $3.90 on some marketplace, and the same old excuses. Got it from a buddy dad. Banana prices. Bananas from Hawaii, I thought. One day I opened the statement and saw a hair over 1,100 in indispensable items over the last couple months. I canceled the extra card with one click that hurt my finger more than the bank. I didn't say anything that day. I didn't want to be the dad who audits. I wanted to be the dad he wanted around. In the end, I was neither. So yes, when I tell you that under that gather sign, I realized my house had become more set piece than home, believe me, I saw it. The invitation that never came was the loudest thing in the room. And when I heard, "You can eat downstairs," I saw it again, cold and clear in my gut. To them, it wasn't my house. I was an extra in their movie, with no lines. And I'm not an extra in my own life. I promised Elaine that. I promised myself. Friday morning, just a hair past 7, my finger dialed Monica Patel. Monica sold my neighbor Mr. Kowalski's place in 2 days flat. He told me she's the kind who talks little and does a lot. I called. "Harold, good morning. How can I help?" Professional voice, warm. "I want to list the house today," I said. "No crowded open house, appointments only, price to sell. No theater, just the truth." She didn't ask why. "I can swing by around 10, photos by early afternoon, live by late afternoon, the market's hot. We'll do it right. You in?" "I'm in," I said. I e-signed everything in 20 minutes. Around 11, the photographer, a kid in a cap with saintly patience, walked every room, asked me to pull the magnets off the fridge, nudged a vase to the left. I didn't argue with aesthetics. I was focused on arithmetic. Jason came downstairs when the flash was already popping in the living room. "What's going on?" He had a pillow crease on his cheek. Brooke trailed behind, sweatshirt, hair thrown up any which way. "We're listing the house, Jason," I said, like asking if the dog had been fed. He laughed that laugh where the mouth goes up more than the eyes. "Funny, Dad. Good one." I showed him the contract on the iPad. He flushed. "You can't." I pointed at the deed. "I can." Brooke crossed her arms. The posture that means now I talk. "And where are we supposed to live?" "You've got a very fluid network of friends," I said. That was the only bit of irony I allowed myself. She got it. It stung. I saw it in her eyes. A little after 4, the listing went live at just under $490 grand. Within a couple hours, we had 5 showings lined up. Monica's texts kept pinging, short and crisp. Another at about 5:40. Young couple around 6:15. Watch the rug in the hall. Jason vanished upstairs. Brooke slammed the bedroom door. I went to the kitchen and made coffee. The smell kept me steady. Saturday brought 7 showings, Sunday more. That night, Monica called. A dozen offers, 3 all cash. Best is just over $536 grand, close in about 3 weeks, no slow contingencies. Buyer is Kellying teacher, pre-approved, strong profile. I recommend we accept. Go with Kelly, I said. I wasn't trying to squeeze the last penny. I wanted peace. By a little after 8, my phone showed 18 missed calls from Jason. Around 8:30, a text. "This is abuse. You're ruining lives." I replied with a photo of the deed in my name and one line. "As of today, no more abuse of me." He didn't respond. The silence was a much louder noise. Monday, I sat in the leather-scented office of Ethan Morales in Farmington. He talks like he's hanging a picture. No rush, no mistakes. "Harold, since they're occupants without a lease, Connecticut law requires a 30-day notice. We'll send a notice to quit today. If needed, we file for eviction. Everything by the book. I don't want to humiliate anyone, I said. Doing it right doesn't humiliate, it protects, he said, sliding the papers over. I signed 5 pages. That afternoon, 2 polite officers knocked. No cuffs, no raised voices, just presence. They served the notice, 30 days to vacate. Deadline December 18th. Brooke tore the envelope open in the kitchen and read it out loud, her hand shaking. Jason, who'd spent the whole afternoon not asking about Lily, not asking if I'd eaten, looked up at the cuckoo clock, like time might start running backward. "You're putting us on the street before Christmas?" he asked, voice climbing. "No," I said, and it was the hardest truth I've ever spoken. "You had a year here without paying rent, with the bills covered. You cut me out on a day meant for gratitude. I'm choosing to respect myself. You have 30 days. I can put up $2,500 for an apartment deposit, with a simple 12-month payback, and 3 family therapy sessions, if you want." Jason kicked the corner of the island. Brooke pulled Lily to the bedroom. I stayed in the kitchen with the clock keeping the same time for very different people. The next 2 weeks taught me more about human nature than any sermon. The Friendsgiving friends vanished. Ben had a nephew visiting. Maddie lives with a roommate who doesn't like kids. Invitations evaporated as fast as they'd appeared. Jason called 27 times on a Tuesday, 14 on Wednesday. Some messages cold, some too hot, all unsteady. I stopped replying. I froze the extra card. I called Lily's daycare and let them know that starting in December I wouldn't be paying half anymore. I saved every reply in a folder with dates. Ethan taught me. Documentation is queen. I put in 2 ring cameras, one out front, one in back. Not paranoia, I told myself as I tightened the bracket. Process. On inspection Saturday, Kelly arrived right at 9. Gray wool coat, kind eyes. "The cherry tree is beautiful," she said on the porch, blowing into the cold. "It was Elaine's favorite," I answered, and turned my face for a second to find my voice. Jason stepped into the hallway, wrinkled t-shirt, a badly rehearsed abandoned look. "The house is still ours for 20 days, he told Kelly, trying to spook her. "It is theirs for 20 days, I said, steady, "and that will be respected. You'll have the house before Christmas." All 3 of us heard Grandpa from down the hall. Lily came barreling in, hair smelling like cheap strawberry shampoo, and jumped into my arms. Right then I decided the terms of my will would change that very day. I didn't know that what I was about to sign that afternoon would ping around the family group chat like a headline. Monday, I met the notary at the bank, sat with Ethan at the end of the table and signed the will update. A fund of 50 grand for Lily, available when she's 25, with an advance for education. Jason, who'd been set to get the house, was reduced to a single dollar, the symbolic buck, with a letter attached explaining why, repeated disrespect and financial abuse. I asked for a no contest clause. Any challenge would cut Lily's fund in half. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Better safe than sorry," I said. He half smiled. When I stepped out of the bank, the air felt lighter. I grabbed a coffee on the corner, about $3. The cashier slid me back 15 cents. I dropped the coins in my coat pocket along with a new feeling. I'd done what needed doing. No shouting, no humiliation, just pens. On December 10th, Jason knocked once and pushed in. "Dad, the apartment we found fell through. The landlord wants no kids." He said it like a weather report. "Sorry, but can we stay longer? Through January?" I counted to 3, thinking of Dr. Collins, a name I only knew on paper. "Jason, you lived here a year. I paid about $8,400 for heat, around $2,900 for internet and cable, roughly $1,200 a month in groceries. I heard from your mouth that I wasn't welcome at Thanksgiving in my own house. I offered $2,500 and therapy. You said no, so no. On the 18th by 10, you 2 hand over the keys. I set up a civil standby with the police so nobody loses their head. And I truly hope you find something, for your sake and Lily's." "Stingy old man," he said, spitting each word. "I was never stingy," I said. "I was a fool." I closed the door slow enough to hear myself. On the 18th, a little before 10, A couple of West Hartford cruisers idled discreetly across Maple. Not a movie scene, just protocol. Brooke came down pale, Lily on her hip, a blue suitcase in hand. "Harold, I didn't have anything to do with that. I was defending Jason, but I should have stopped. I'm sorry." I believed her. I handed her an envelope with $2,500 and a simple agreement. 12 payments of a hair over $200. "This is so Lily has a roof today," I said. "And this is so we learn something." She cried and signed. Jason arrived last, tossed the keys into my hand without looking. "Merry Christmas," he said, like dropping a pebble and waiting for a tidal wave. "Merry Christmas to you too, son." He turned his back. I breathed. The house went quiet in that old way. I heard the heat kick on. It was the last time I heard that sound as the owner. Kelly closed on December 21st. The closing table had snowflake sugar cookies. I signed the last page and felt one weight lift and another settle. I did the math. Bought for about $112,000 in '89. Sold for $536. After fees, I walked away with roughly $511. Monica gave me a quick hug. "You were firm and kind. Not everyone pulls that off." I bought a one-way ticket to St. Augustine, Florida. Just over $200. A simple condo, a balcony with palms in view. The Connecticut cold would still live in my bones, but in January I wanted sun on my knees. Christmas Eve, I rang the bell at Jason and Brooke's new ground floor place in East Hartford. Smell of tomato sauce. Lily ran over with a drawing of a turkey with 4 legs and a red heart. I handed her a small box, a ceramic ornament that said, "Gratitude." Jason appeared in the kitchen, quiet. I didn't step in. "I just came to say Merry Christmas and leave this for Lily." He nodded, eyes wet and stubborn. I went down the steps. The wind bit my face. A quiet pride settled in. I hadn't broken the family, I'd drawn the lines. January in St. Augustine smells like salt air and Latin coffee. I walked the boardwalk, learned to like the winter sun, and logged into family therapy on Wednesdays. They agreed after Brooke signed that paper. The first sessions were rough. "You always preferred Mom," Jason said. "You always preferred yourself," I answered. Dr. Collins, gray beard, steady, warm voice, told us to chew our words until the barbs came off. Talk feeling, not accusation. In one session, Jason said, "I felt ashamed having to live with you and I took it out on you, when it should have turned into gratitude." I listened. "I felt like I lost my son when your mother died," I said, "and I tried to hold on to you with money." Lily popped onto the screen with a sun she'd drawn behind her head. "Grandpa, will you come to my birthday?" "If I'm invited," I said. She smiled. The kind of smile that makes you want to fix the whole world. It felt like, finally, things were finding their places. I had no idea the version of the story making the rounds back on my block wouldn't be mine. 3 days after closing, a neighbor texted me a link. "Harold, did you see this?" It was a post on weha.com, a local site that loves gossip dressed up as news. Headline: "Young family evicted right before Christmas in West Hartford." Stock photo of suitcases in the snow. The copy talked about a grandfather who sold the house without considering the impact, and a ruined Christmas. No names, of course, but the neighborhood's small. We know who's who by the shape of the fence. I felt the heat rise. I breathed. I called Ethan. "Don't sue," I said before he could offer. "Just tell me how to answer without drowning." "Write a right of reply, polite, with dates, with numbers, no adjectives," he said. "Send it to the editor and to me." That night, something else popped up. Brooke posted on Instagram, "My father-in-law left us without a home for Christmas." A photo of Lily looking out a window. The caption ran 3 paragraphs and had 0 dates. The comments rolled in like waves. "Monster. Who does that to family? Rich old men don't care about kids." I read it with the calm of someone hanging onto a rock in a river. I didn't defend myself there, not in that circus. Next day, I emailed the site's editor. "My name is Harold Whitman. I'm the grandfather in your story. Here are the facts." I laid out the 30-day notice served on November 18th. The offer of $2,500 with a simple 12-payment plan at a hair over $200 a month. The therapy I offered to pay for, a year of covered bills. I attached blurred copies of receipts, blacking out numbers nobody needed. I cited dates, times. I ended with, "If your newsroom thinks the truth gets in the way, at least let the truth in." A few hours later, the editor replied, "Mr. Whitman, thanks for the documents. We've updated the piece." The headline became, "Understanding the Family That Left a House Before Christmas." The story included my letter, my numbers, my last line. The neighborhood read it. I know because the next morning Mr. Kowalski stopped me at the market. "Harold, I've known you 30 years. Should have called before I believed a headline, I'm sorry." He set a firm hand on my shoulder. "You did what I might never have the guts to do. A boundary is tough love." On Nextdoor, another circus. An anonymous handle wrote, "The Maple Avenue grandpa was cruel." I jumped in. I wrote, "If you speak from behind a mask, you're speaking without heart. My name is Harold Whitman. I offered what I could. I won't offer silence anymore." Then in one breath, I put the painful numbers where people could see them. About $8,400 in heat, close to $2,900 for internet and cable, roughly $1,200 a month in groceries, a touch over $1,100 in indispensables those last 2 months, sold the house for around $536, walked with roughly $511 after fees, set aside $50,000 for Lily, and left Jason a single dollar. No insults, no extra shine, just light where it belonged. The part that stung and satisfied most was when one of the Friendsgiving crew, that Ben, chimed in to call me an asshole. I answered, "Ben, with all due respect, you were a guest in a house I was paying for. You ate my homemade cranberry sauce. You drank beer in my living room. You heard my son tell me I wasn't welcome. And you raised a glass. You stayed quiet. Now you speak." Late. He didn't reply. A woman I didn't know wrote, "My dad kicked me out at 19. It hurt. Today I'm grateful. What Mr. Whitman did is different. He drew a boundary and paid the emotional cost. That's rare. I could have left it there. I chose to go a step further once." I sent a letter to the Hartford Courant with a plain title, "When Selling the House is an Act of Care." It didn't make the front page. It landed in the Sunday opinion corner. In 1,000 words, I told what you're reading now in 6 chapters. I talked about the smell of coffee and paid bills, the ironic gather, and the real gratitude. The replies came from strangers. "Thank you for writing. I needed this before making a decision." It gave me courage. I wasn't after likes. I was after dignity. Worth it. Amid the noise, Brooke texted, "I was wrong to post. I acted on emotion. I was mad at Jason and took it out on you. I'm taking it down." She did. Then she wrote, "Thank you for the $2,500. I'll pay it back over 12 months, with interest. Paid in respect." I laughed to myself at the joke she didn't know she'd made. Monica planted the sold sign on the lawn the Tuesday after the article. Light rain. The word sold glinted on the metal. A neighbor walked by and said loud enough for anyone to hear, "Congratulations, Harold." I didn't feel victory, I felt an ending. The public part was done. The healing would start in the quiet of a therapist's office, no audience. That's where I went looking. My condo in St. Augustine had a balcony that caught the morning sun. I bought a beach chair for about $20 and parked it right there. January smelled like salt air and Latin coffee. I started volunteering at a nonprofit that fixes bikes for kids. The click of gears became the soundtrack. Every time a chain slipped into place, I thought about the click that was missing with Jason. Everything's links. Loose ones snap under weight. Our sessions with Dr. Collins got less sharp. He taught us the difference between apology and repair. Apology is words. Repair is repeated behavior. Jason heard that, and I saw a good kind of fear in his eyes, the kind that moves you. In March, Ethan emailed, "Lily's trust confirmed." I printed it and slid it into the folder. Button pressed, door locked. I slept better. In April, I got a photo of Lily on a pink bike and a glitter helmet. "Look, Grandpa." I pinched the screen wider like that could pull her closer. In May, Jason sent a deposit. A hair over $200, the first payment on the agreement Brooke signed. He forwarded the receipt with no caption. I wrote back, "It's not about the money, it's about the habit." He said, "I know." Small ping pong, but it was a game. In the fall, I went back to Connecticut for Lily's 4th birthday. Strawberry cake, confetti on the carpet. Jason met me in a clean shirt, beard trimmed. He hugged me awkwardly, like bumping into a friend who owes overdue library books. "Dad, I'm sorry, really, I was an idiot." I squeezed his shoulder. "You were, and I let it happen. I don't anymore." He laughed, half coughed, then nodded. We ate cake. Lily opened a box of colored pencils and a new helmet. At the end, he handed me an envelope. "First repayment on what you gave in December, about $208. I'll stick to it." I held it, felt the weight. "It's not about the money. It's about you learning to pay what you promise." He got it. From the kitchen, Brooke gave me a thumbs up. Small scenes make big stories. The next year on Thanksgiving, I got 2 invites. One from the church in St. Augustine, one from Jason. "Dinner at 5, the message said. "It's your home, if you want it." The word home lit up on the screen like a beacon. I went. I showed up with a pumpkin pie, Elaine's recipe, the same yellowed page in her right-leaning handwriting. The table was simple. A smaller turkey, mashed potatoes smashed with a fork, canned cranberries with the ridges still showing. Lily pulled out my chair. Jason raised a glass of water. "This year I'm grateful I'm learning to listen, and that my dad's at the table." My chest tightened like it had that day at Big Y, but this time it was the good kind. I thought about the closing, the polite officers, the sold sign, and all the numbers that turned into people. A dozen offers, 72 hours, 30 days, 18 calls, 2,500, 536. Sometimes poetic justice looks like accounting. You close the books. You pay what you owe. You collect what you must. What's left has a name. Respect. After dessert, Lily brought me a drawing. A house with 2 windows, a tree, 3 stick figures holding hands. Across the top in wobbly letters, "My family." I tucked it in my shirt pocket close to my heart. And for the first time in a long time, I felt invited. Not out of obligation, but by choice. Mine. If you asked what I learned that year, I'd put it like this. A boundary is a gift you give yourself and, as a bonus, the other person. Ingratitude grows where you water silence. Selling the house where you raised your son isn't punishment. It's a declaration. And sometimes you have to say no on a holiday so a real yes has room next time. At the end of the night, Jason washed dishes with me. The water was warm and the soap made bubbles. "Dad, it still hurts knowing you sold that house," he said. No accusation, just truth. "It hurts me too," I said, sliding suds over a plate. "But you know why I did." He nodded, staring out a window onto a street that wasn't Maple and somehow was. "If you hadn't, I wouldn't have stopped." We looked at each other. 2 men with invisible scars, learning not to scratch. He gave a small smile. "Want to take some leftovers?" "Now you're speaking my language," I said. I stepped into the November cold with 2 foil-wrapped trays. The Connecticut sky was the same shade as always, but it felt new. My home was a sunny place in Florida, and at the same time that living room I'd just left, where the word gather finally meant something. I got in the car, turned on the radio, and, no accident, Sinatra came on. "I've been up and down and over and out." I laughed to myself, swallowed a lump, and drove slow down Maple Avenue. The cherry tree wasn't mine anymore, but wood matters less when you're welcome at the table again. And if you've waited this long to hear whether I regret listing the house on a Friday and selling it in 72 hours, I'll say it plain. I don't. If I hadn't, I would have taught Lily that love swallows everything in silence. I'd rather teach her that love speaks, writes, signs, and sometimes hits send. I did. And on the other side, with time, the table got bigger. Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts about the story in the comments. See you in the next one.